So hey guys, and welcome to the Random Watch Do channel. Thanks for joining me for another video on another glorious day here in Auckland in New Zealand. And today guys, I'm just going to continue a little theme that I've been on lately, which is talking about the Seiko SKX. Now today I'm wearing the Seiko SKX009K. I did a video about this quite recently, and I'll just put a link to it up here somewhere or up there. Beautiful watch guys, absolutely beautiful watch. I've got this on the standard stock Jubilee bracelet, if we're allowed to call it that, and it is a stunning watch. It's a terrific watch. It's probably the best value mechanical watch that money can buy. Quite probably the best mechanical watch that money can buy. And today I'm going to do a little comparison video because I've bought two more Seiko watches very similar to this from an earlier generation but with the same case design, and I wanted to show you those two watches because they're really interesting. And if you guys are looking for bargains, in the secondary Seiko diver's watch world, I can give you two really fantastic options right here. Okay, so what are these two bargains that we speak of? Well, here they are guys, and what reminiscent colours they are of if you grew up like me in the 1970s and 1980s. These two colours are just so reminiscent of the 70s and 80s. I mean, who didn't have a pair of curtains that were orange and yellow? Everybody had orange and yellow curtains when these watches were around. So these two colours, you may think they look like something that got thrown up on a Saturday night after too many Stellas, but these are trendy colours guys. We'll start as we always do with the big boy. This is, as you can see, it's a Quartz. It's got a tick-tock. This is a Seiko Quartz. This is the 7548-700C. This is pretty much an identical case to the SKX. And I've got the SKX on here right now. I'll take it off in a minute and I'll just put these two watches side by side. But I just wanted to show you this bad boy to start with. I love this watch. There is a more modern version of this, which is also now discontinued, because of course this watch in particular was discontinued back in the mid-1980s. It ran for 5 or 6 years, I believe, from, I'm going to say 1979 to 1985 or 1986. This one's December 1981. I can tell that from the serial number. You can just see the serial number in a row there along the bottom. 1D6168. 1 is 1981 and D is December. So December 81 is when this watch was cased. So there is a very similar watch, almost identical looking watch to this, which was a mechanical, and that was the SKX. I'm going to say the SKX011, I think it was. That was a Japanese only, a JDM version. Listen to this bezel guys, because this is important. Listen to that. Going to show you a very distinct difference between this and a more modern SKX. In fact, I'll show you now. This watch is actually a better build quality than the more modern SKX. Listen to this bezel. I'm not entirely sure you can hear that. The bezel on this is kind of dampened compared to this one. So the bezel on this has a ball. This is still the old-fashioned type of bezel that has a ball on a spring in the case, and I think it's either the bottom left or the top left of this case. There is a little ball in it on a spring. It's preened into the case, and every time you turn this bezel like that, beautifully precise, you get that lovely precise click. It's a 60 click bezel. Now they changed it with the SKX. This is on more of a friction spring, and it's got nothing like the precision feel and the accuracy and the line-up ability, I'll come to that in a minute, of the bezel on this. So I'll go back to this watch because that's what we're here to talk about. Let's leave the SKX in the background there. There you go. Yeah, I'll come back to you in a minute. So So it's a quartz watch. It's a high torque quartz movement, the 7548 movement, and it is a beast. It's an absolute beast of a movement. It's the same movement that they ended up just modifying slightly and putting into the tuners, the quartz tuners. So it's a really, really good, I think it's a 7 joule movement. Now that's incredible. Most quartz watches don't have joules, of course, and they're heavily made of plastic parts. The parts in this quartz movement are proper metal or bimetallic parts. There's very little plastic in these, and they have 7 joules. It's quite incredible. So why is this watch better? I've talked about the bezel. I've talked about the bezel feel, the precision of the bezel, the accuracy of the bezel. Why is this watch better build quality than its younger sibling, the SKX009? This watch 2018, this watch 1981. Pretty much identical cases. They are identical cases, if I'm honest with you. There is a very, very slight difference in the thickness, and I'll show you that in a minute. Why is this better build quality? Well, I'll tell you another reason this is better is because the alignment on this is spot on, apart from one thing, which I'm going to change, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. The alignment on this is spot on. Seikos are famous. There's an example of it there. Let me see how close I can get. There's an example of it there. Look at the 6 o'clock marker, or look at the 6 o'clock loom, and look how poorly aligned it is with the 6 o'clock or the very bottom indice. And you'll see this all the way around. There's a slight misalignment. Now, this, by Seiko standards, is not bad. It's not bad, but it's off, isn't it? It's not very well aligned. And quite often at the top there, they're not particularly well aligned. This one's off a tiny bit as well. Quite often, the bezel on these is miles off. It can be out by half a click, quite comfortably. And I think that's the reason, actually, why Seiko changed the bezel and took away the ball and spring, which was very precise. I think they took it away because this is a cheaper way to do it. You know, this kind of friction spring is just a cheaper way to have a bezel. But what it means is, it's very, very difficult to get it perfectly in line. That is just the tiniest bit off. Whereas everything on this watch, and it's the same with the 6458, which I'll come to in a minute, which in my view is even better than this one, and I'll explain why in a minute. But the alignment on this is absolutely spot on. Now, the other thing that makes this better, obviously, is the bezel action itself. Now, this one is slightly off. Now, somebody has done a repair job on this in the past, now, which is not a surprise. It's a 1981 watch. Somebody's had it apart, and what they've done is when they took the bezel off, for some reason they took the bezel insert off and they've put it back in again. They've put it back in 1/2 of a click off, and what it's meant is that's where it should be. So this is the bezel completely settled in between the ball, so it doesn't move at all. But because somebody's put the actual bezel insert back on incorrectly, if I leave this exactly where it should be, the bezel's off by half a click. So the only way I can make at the moment the triangle loom pip line up perfectly at 12 o'clock is to leave it to leave it disengaged, really, just halfway between one and the other. So it works, but it's not perfect. So at some point, probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks, I'm actually going to I'm actually going to take this whole watch apart, by the way, change the battery, and I'm going to, mainly for the reason that I want to change the bezel insert. I want to remove the bezel insert and reattach it back in the right place. But I thought, I might as well just take the whole thing apart and replace the battery. And I've actually just ordered some new seals for it as well. So I'm going to replace all the seals. So this watch will be ready for the Fiji swimming pool come the next trip to Fiji. I'll be able to wear it in the sea over the reef when I'm snorkeling, but most importantly when I go for a swim in the pool between drinking cocktails, I'll be able to wear this watch because it'll be completely and utterly fresh. Anyway, I'm going to take you on. So this is a great watch. Cost wise, this cost me, I've just landed this from Japan via Chrono24. I think it cost me about 600 New Zealand dollars, which is about 300 Great British pounds or 400 American dollars. And I'm going to take you across. So that's actually about the same price as a good one of these. So these aren't incredibly cheap compared to this, but this is a better watch if you're okay with quartz. But keep in mind, this is a high torque 7 jewel quartz. This is no ordinary quartz, guys. This is not a Swatch quartz. This is a Seiko high torque quartz. Very, very different. This is a 7S26 mechanical watch, and I'm just going to move on to watch number 3, which is this little beauty here. This is the 6458. So this is a 38mm diameter quartz. It's got the same setup basically as its bigger brother, the 7548, but as you can see here, this is 43mm, the orange one, and the yellow one, the other half of the 1970s, 1980s curtains that everybody had, is 38mm. So this has got a slightly different handset, as you can see. They're slightly, particularly the minute's hand, is a slightly different shape. It's got the same seconds hand ticking around there on the 6458 quartz movement, which is also a 7 jewel quartz movement. Look at the way the seconds hand, and this is one thing I failed to mention when I was talking about the 7548, look at the way the seconds hand hits the marker all the way around. And I've checked this, guys, there's a little bit of parallax distortion going on, probably if you think that it's slightly off, but trust me, it is absolutely hitting those markers all the way around. That's actually quite nice to have on a quartz watch. It's got the same setup with the bezel. It's got a very, very similar case back. Now this watch, I'll go to the serial number there, you can see 188801. So that tells me that this watch is also from 1981, and the second numeral there, 8, tells me that that's the 8th month of the year. So this watch was cased in August 1981. This watch was cased in December of 1981. So 2 watches here from 1981, and they've both really survived quite well. And the other thing I'll mention, actually, whilst I'm at it, is they're both still on the original strap. I've had to put a new keeper on this strap because the keeper had split on this particular one, so I threw it away. Well, actually, I haven't thrown it away. I've kept it, even though it's broken and can't be used again. But this is the original. This is the original buckle. It's the original strap that came with this watch in 1981. Isn't that marvellous? I just think that's really cool. It does obviously indicate that the watch wasn't worn, you know, a terrific amount. There you go. You can just see there, Seiko Japan, and there's the reference number for the strap. And of course, you've got that really cool. I love this. I love that logo, that Seiko logo. Now that's a slightly different logo to the one that you usually see. This is the GL831 strap. Again, the original strap. So that's the normal Seiko logo that you would see on the case back of a Seiko diver's watch, as well as on the strap. But this one, just struggling a bit with the focus there. I think it's because it's trying to focus on other watches. There we go. Yeah, this one, look at that. What a lovely pattern that is there. Love that. So original Seiko strap. Now this one came to me. I bought this from a local seller who doesn't know anything about watches, and I got this really cheap. I got this for, I think it was 300 New Zealand dollars, which is about 150 Great British pounds, or 200 American dollars. And this one had a bit of an issue in that the bezel would not turn. It was stiff as anything. It was stiff as anything, and I couldn't get the thing to move at all. I tried so hard to get that bezel turning, but it didn't want a bar of it. So what I decided to do, guys, I decided to strip this watch down. I took it apart. And the first thing I did, and I'll just put it to one side so I can show you a couple of pictures, is I tried to remove the bezel first because I thought, well, let's pop it off. Well, it didn't want to come off. It really, really didn't want to come off. So I thought, okay, I'll come back to you in a minute. So I unscrewed the case back, which was quite tight, and I took the case back off, and I took the battery out, and I took the protector, the movement protector away, which is also, I think, a Faraday cage for its anti-magnetic properties. And I pulled the crown out, and I pulled the movement out, and then I thought, right, gotcha now, I'm coming back to this bezel. It did not want to come off. I put a little bezel removal tool in here, along there. I could not get it in anywhere, and it did not want to shift, and I did not want to damage the watch with a bezel removal tool. So I decided to drop a little bit of washing up liquid, very liquid, into some warm water in a little bowl, and I just popped it in, left it for a couple of hours, and I thought, that'll do it, that'll do the trick. Lo and behold, left it for an hour, pulled it out, dried it off. No, still didn't want a bar of it. So I thought, well, okay, so what's the next thing after you've tried the bezel removal tool and then you've tried warm soapy water for a couple of hours? What do you do next? And I thought, I know. my wife has got a little tub of, or a little bottle of Singer sewing machine oil, and I dropped some sewing machine oil down through the gaps here, down through the gaps, and I thought, oh, that'll do it, that'll work. And eventually, guys, after a lot of trial and error, I eventually managed to get this bezel off, and I'll leave a little picture up here. It was a little bit mucky. It wasn't an awful lot of muck in there, but I think I'd probably cleared most of it with the, you know, with the several hours of washing and the oil. I'd probably cleansed a lot of the dirt and gunk that was in there that was keeping it tight. And there were 2 or 3 spots underneath there where I think it had almost rusted, or the gunk had built up to a point where it was just jamming the bezel. So cleaned it all up, put it all back together. Here we are, got a nice rotating bezel, guys. Really happy. So that was my first dabble. There we go, that was my first dabble. This is another one that's got a little ball on a spring just up in this left lug corner there. And so I'm pretty proud of myself, guys. You know, my first bit of watch repair. I repaired the bezel on a 1981 Seiko 6458. Got it working nicely again. Really happy with that. I was going to put a new battery in it, but I've got a couple of new batteries, but I decided not to put a new battery in just yet because I don't know how old the one is that's in it, and it's a Seiko battery that's in it. So I thought, well, it's a decent battery they've put in it, so I'll leave it in until it starts to go, and also that'll tell me how much life it actually had in it as well. So this is a lovely watch, guys. This wears. I'm just going to do a quick wrist shot. I'm going to finish this video because I'm conscious of the fact that I'm probably rabbling on, as I tend to when I get into these subjects. I'm just going to do a quick wrist watch check with that. Look at that. That's a 38mm Seiko 6458. There we are. Looks pretty good. 7.2 inch wrist. You know, to some people that might look a bit small, but I think that looks perfect. I think that's the right dimension. Original strap as well. 1981 strap, apart from the keeper. That's 2025, that keeper, on a 1981 strap. So there you go, guys. There you go. That's the end of this video. 2 lovely watches, reminiscent of the late 70s, early 80s. You know, the curtains that you grew up with, if you grew up in that generation. You know, or the 8 pints of Stella that you throw up on a Saturday night. That's what it looks like, isn't it? 2 great watches, guys. They're both really affordable. I would say if you like these watches, get on the market, get on eBay, get on Chrono24, and pick up a couple of these watches. They also did a pale dial one of these. They also did a white dial one of these. And they also did a really weird looking Tiffany dial. Yes, a Tiffany dial version of the 6458 is out there. Bloody expensive, really expensive. But personally, I prefer the orange dial. And I prefer the orange dialed SKX to any other SKX version. In other words, any other diver's watch that is in this case. This, for me, the orange dial, this is the golden one. Quite literally, this is the golden one. So there you go, guys. 2 lovely watches. Quartz watches. No service costs. You can service it yourself. You can pull it apart, change the battery, clean up the bezel yourself. Maintenance free, pretty much. Cost free. Go out and get yourself one. They also do if you're really boring and you don't like colourful things, just get the black version. They're out there. Thanks for watching the video, guys. Really appreciate it. If you like the video, and if you've managed to stick with me all this time whilst I'm rambling, please do consider subscribing. I do lots of rambling videos where I talk about all sorts of different things. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing if you do, and thanks to my existing subscribers, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video. Cheers.